Imagine a world where the familiar faces you encounter daily, the leaders on your television screen, even your seemingly ordinary neighbor, might harbor a profound secret. What if, beneath their human veneer, an ancient alien intelligence lurks, observing, manipulating, and perhaps even controlling the very fabric of our society? This isn't the plot of a science fiction movie. It's the chilling premise that has captivated minds and fueled whispers for decades. The idea that entities, indistinguishable from us yet fundamentally different, walk among us. For years, a legend has circulated in the more obscure corners of internet forums and hushed conversations, the whispered tale of a cold blood test. Not a medical procedure you'd find in any hospital, but a clandestine diagnostic, allegedly developed and deployed by a shadowy US agency. Its purpose? To expose these hidden beings, these so-called reptilians, whose physiology, it's claimed, betrays their true, non-human nature. Is this merely an elaborate piece of folklore, a modern myth born from an overactive imagination, or could it be a forgotten, unsettling chapter in American history, carefully erased from public consciousness? The very notion forces us to question the solidity of our reality, to wonder if the world we perceive is merely a facade, a meticulously constructed illusion designed to conceal something truly extraordinary, something that defies our understanding of life itself. Throughout this series, we will peel back the layers of this extraordinary claim. We'll venture into the murky origins of this alleged cold blood test, exploring its purported mechanisms and the astonishing circumstances under which it was supposedly applied. We'll examine the tantalizing hints and fragmented accounts that suggest its existence, daring to ask the uncomfortable questions that mainstream narratives often shy away from. Consider, for a moment, the startling implications if such a test truly existed, and more importantly, if it was ever actually deployed. What would it mean for our understanding of power, of identity, of humanity itself? If a secret method to unmask these hidden beings was indeed used even once, it would rewrite not just our history, but our very perception of who we are and who we share this planet with. The idea is so profound, so paradigm-shifting, that it almost beggars belief. Yet here lies the ultimate enigma. How could something so monumental, so utterly revolutionary, have transpired right under our collective noses and gone almost entirely unnoticed by the public? How could a revelation of such cosmic significance remain confined to the shadows, a mere whisper among conspiracy theorists, rather than shattering the foundations of our world? This question is at the heart of our exploration, driving us to delve deeper into the layers of secrecy, denial, and perhaps deliberate obfuscation. We're not just talking about a secret. We're talking about a secret so vast, so encompassing, that its very concealment becomes a testament to its potential truth. Join us as we begin to uncover the threads of this incredible narrative, searching for answers in the forgotten corners of history and the uncharted territories of human belief. The sheer audacity of such a claim, a secret test for hidden beings, doesn't emerge from a vacuum. It finds fertile ground in the echoes of ancient fears, in stories woven into the very fabric of human civilization since time immemorial. Across continents and through countless millennia, humanity has grappled with the concept of serpentine or reptilian humanoids, beings that blur the lines between beast and intellect, between the terrestrial and the divine. These aren't just isolated myths, they are recurring motifs, suggesting a deep-seated archetype within the collective unconscious, or perhaps a shared memory of something truly extraordinary. From the sun-baked plains of ancient Sumeria, we encounter the Annunaki, often depicted with reptilian features or associated with serpents, believed to be powerful deities who descended from the heavens. Their legends speak of creation, of guiding early human civilization, and of a hierarchy that placed them far above mortal men. Travel eastward to the vibrant tapestry of Hindu mythology, and you'll discover the Nagas, divine, semi-divine, or semi-human beings with serpent-like qualities, sometimes depicted as part human, part cobra. These powerful entities could be benevolent guardians of treasures and sacred waters, or vengeful spirits capable of immense destruction. Then, journey across oceans to the Americas, and indigenous cultures across the continent tell tales of shapeshifters, often linked to snakes or other reptiles, who could assume human form to interact with tribes, sometimes as teachers, sometimes as tricksters. These stories, passed down through generations, speak of a world where the boundaries between species were fluid, and where powerful non-human intelligences walked the earth in disguise. It is this rich global legacy of serpentine lore that provides the conceptual bedrock for the modern resurgence of reptilian conspiracy theories. What began as ancient spiritual or mythological narratives has, in recent decades, evolved into a contemporary, often political, framework for understanding unseen forces at play in our world. The catalyst for this transformation, and arguably the most influential figure in popularizing the Reptilian Agenda, is undoubtedly David Icke. Through his prolific writings and lectures, Icke synthesized these disparate ancient myths, channeled spiritual insights, and contemporary political observations into a comprehensive, if controversial, narrative. He posits that a secret race of reptilian humanoids, originating from the Draco constellation, have infiltrated Earth and secretly control humanity by shape-shifting into human form and occupying positions of power in governments, media, and finance. His theories, while widely dismissed by mainstream science and society, have resonated powerfully with millions, providing a seemingly coherent explanation for perceived global manipulation and societal ills. The question then arises, why do these theories, seemingly so outlandish, resonate so deeply with certain segments of society? The psychological underpinnings are complex. In an increasingly interconnected yet chaotic world, such narratives offer a sense of order, a grand explanation for events that otherwise seem inexplicable. They provide a clear other, an external hidden enemy upon whom anxieties about power, control, and the future can be projected. This othering phenomenon is a powerful psychological tool, allowing individuals to define themselves by what they are not, and to identify a common adversary. It taps into a primal human need to understand who is truly in charge, especially when trust in traditional institutions wanes. By identifying a hidden, non-human force, these theories offer a convenient scapegoat, simplifying complex geopolitical landscapes into a battle between good and evil, between humanity and an alien oppressor. Understanding this deep cultural landscape steeped in ancient fears and modern anxieties is crucial. It lays the groundwork, creating a receptive environment where a theory as extraordinary as the cold blood test could not only be conceived but also gain traction. It's within this fertile soil of historical precedent and psychological resonance that the idea of a secret diagnostic capable of unmasking hidden reptilian entities begins to feel less like pure fantasy and more like a logical, albeit extreme, extension of humanity's enduring fascination with the unseen and the unknown. This deep-seated cultural predisposition makes the very notion of such a test, however unbelievable, a compelling subject for exploration. This deep-seated cultural predisposition makes the very notion of such a test, however unbelievable, a compelling subject for exploration. And so we arrive at the heart of our inquiry, the alleged mechanics and methodology of the cold blood test itself. What exactly was this mysterious procedure, and how was it supposedly administered to expose these hidden reptilian entities? The core principle behind the cold blood test theory is deceptively simple. It posits that reptilian beings, even in human form, retain fundamental physiological differences from true humans. The most crucial of these, as the name suggests, is their alleged cold-blooded nature. Unlike mammals who are endothermic, maintaining a constant internal body temperature through metabolic processes, reptiles are ectothermic, relying on external sources of heat. The theory suggests that while these shapeshifters could mimic human appearance, they could not fully override this fundamental biological characteristic. Therefore, a method designed to exploit this temperature differential would be their ultimate undoing. Various whispers from the shadows describe hypothetical procedures for this test. One common iteration involves specialized thermal imaging or infrared scanning devices. Imagine a seemingly innocuous security checkpoint, perhaps in a government building or during a high-profile event. As individuals pass through, they are subjected to a quick silent scan. For a human, the scan would register a consistent internal temperature, typically around 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. However, for a reptilian masquerading as human, the theory claims their internal temperature would fluctuate more dramatically, reflecting ambient conditions, or perhaps even registering significantly lower than a true human's, especially in cooler environments, or if their shape-shifting energy was momentarily depleted. The cold aspect isn't just about a lower temperature, but about a thermoregulatory pattern inconsistent with mammalian biology. Other, more esoteric descriptions of the test hint at unique biological markers, perhaps detectable through advanced spectroscopy, or even subtle changes in electromagnetic fields surrounding the individual. Some narratives suggest the test wasn't always about advanced technology, but rather about observation under specific, controlled conditions designed to stress the reptilian physiology. For instance, prolonged exposure to cold temperatures might force a reptilian to revert to a more natural, less human form, or at least reveal telltale physiological signs of thermal discomfort that a human would not exhibit. The clandestine nature of such a test was paramount. If these beings were indeed powerful and influential, any attempt to expose them would have to be conducted in utmost secrecy. Disguised as routine checks or even seemingly accidental encounters, tracing the earliest mentions and descriptions of this alleged procedure leads us down a rabbit hole of online forums, obscure publications, and whispered conversations among those who claim to possess hidden knowledge. It rarely appears in mainstream historical accounts, reinforcing the conspiratorial narrative that it was deliberately suppressed. These accounts often point to shadowy government agencies, or even clandestine groups within these agencies, as the architects and administrators of the test. They were supposedly the guardians of humanity, tasked with identifying and neutralizing this pervasive, non-human threat. The cold blood test thus became a mythical weapon in a silent war waged beneath the surface of everyday reality. The fine line between scientific scrutiny and conspiratorial conviction becomes incredibly thin here. From a purely scientific standpoint, the idea of a shape-shifting reptile maintaining a perfect human facade while still betraying its thermoregulatory nature through a simple scan presents numerous biological and physical impossibilities. Yet, for believers, the very lack of mainstream scientific endorsement or tangible evidence only serves to strengthen their conviction. It's seen not as a failure of the theory, but as further proof of the immense power and secrecy of the Reptilian Agenda and the lengths to which they and their human collaborators would go to suppress the truth. This dynamic highlights how deeply ingrained the psychological underpinnings of these theories are, transforming skepticism into validation within the closed loop of conspiratorial thinking. The concept of the cold blood test thrives precisely because it offers a tangible, albeit secret, mechanism for revealing the invisible enemy, a mechanism that, by its very nature, must remain hidden from the uninitiated. The true paradox of the cold blood test lies in its alleged public application. How could such a definitive diagnostic tool, capable of unmasking non-human entities, be deployed in settings accessible to the public, yet remain entirely unnoticed by the vast majority? The answer, according to the law, is that public doesn't mean transparent or overt. Instead, it refers to its implementation within specific, highly controlled environments where the targets were present. But the true nature of the examination was expertly concealed. This wasn't a mass screening at a local clinic. It was a surgical, strategic operation, disguised as something else entirely. The alleged targets of this clandestine testing were not random individuals, but rather those occupying positions of significant power, influence, or public trust. Think high-ranking government officials, corporate CEOs, prominent media personalities, or even widely recognized cultural icons. The theory posits that these are precisely the individuals most likely to be reptilian in disguise, strategically placed to manipulate human society from within. Therefore, the public exposure wasn't about a grand reveal, but about subtle, almost imperceptible tests conducted during official functions, exclusive gatherings, or even during pre-scheduled media appearances. Imagine a simple handshake, a brief touch, or even a seemingly innocuous medical checkup before a high-profile event, all secretly designed to register a telltale physiological anomaly. This brings us to the controlled environment theory. These weren't laboratories with flashing lights and overt scientific equipment. Instead, the environments themselves were weaponized. A lavish banquet hall could be subtly cooled to a specific temperature, an air conditioning system tampered with, or even a particular lighting setup used that, unbeknownst to the subjects, was tuned to detect specific thermal signatures. The results, therefore, wouldn't be shouted from the rooftops. Instead, they would be quietly logged, analyzed, and used to inform secret strategies. The beauty of this method, from a conspiratorial standpoint, is its inherent element of plausible deniability. Any anomalous reading could be dismissed as a faulty sensor, a temporary malfunction, or even attributed to a common human ailment. The reptilian subject, none the wiser, would simply move on, their cover intact, while the shadowy operators would have gained invaluable intelligence. This operational philosophy aligns perfectly with the sleeper agent analogy. The reptilians, in this narrative, are not invaders storming the gates. They are infiltrators, embedded deep within human society, patiently waiting, observing, and subtly steering events. The cold blood test was thus conceived as a counterintelligence measure, a way to identify these hidden operatives without alerting them to their exposure. It paints a picture of a silent, ongoing war, fought not with bombs and bullets, but with whispers, surveillance, and the meticulous analysis of physiological data. Connecting the dots through this lens, seemingly innocuous events take on a new, unsettling significance. Was that sudden dip in temperature during a crucial political summit truly an HVAC issue or a covert testing mechanism? Was that prominent figure's unexplained illness that forced them out of the public eye for a few weeks actually a cover for a forced physiological adjustment after being exposed? The narrative encourages believers to re-examine history, not through official records, but through the filter of this hidden battle. Every unexplained anomaly, every sudden change in a public figure's behavior, every technological glitch at a critical moment can be reinterpreted as a potential ripple effect of the cold blood test and the ongoing struggle against the unseen forces among us. This recontextualization transforms ordinary reality into a landscape teeming with hidden meanings and secret agendas, where every shadow might conceal a truth far more extraordinary than we could ever imagine. The lack of overt evidence, rather than disproving the theory, becomes further proof of the sheer sophistication and secrecy of the operation. The lack of overt evidence, rather than disproving the theory, becomes further proof of the sheer sophistication and secrecy of the operation. And this, precisely, brings us to the most perplexing question of all. If such a monumentally significant cold blood test ever truly existed and was deployed, how could it have possibly gone unnoticed by the vast majority of the public? Why the resounding silence that, for believers, speaks volumes? The answer, according to the proponents of this theory, lies in a sophisticated art of misdirection, a masterful manipulation of public attention designed to keep eyes and minds far from the truly significant. Imagine a stage magician creating a grand, distracting spectacle with one hand, while the other subtly performs the real trick. In the context of the cold blood test, the public is constantly bombarded with a deluge of information, often sensational or trivial, designed to occupy cognitive bandwidth and prevent deeper scrutiny. Scandals, celebrity gossip, political dramas all serve as potent diversions, ensuring that the collective gaze remains fixed on the surface, never truly plumbing the depths where the real operations allegedly unfold. Crucially, the role of mainstream media in either ignoring or actively ridiculing such claims is central to this narrative of concealment. Any mention of reptilian beings or secret tests is swiftly branded as fringe, absurd, or the product of delusion. This immediate dismissal, often accompanied by derisive laughter or condescending tones, acts as a powerful psychological barrier. Who wants to be associated with such lunacy? This media suppression doesn't just prevent information from reaching the public, it actively conditions the public to reject it out of hand, creating an almost impenetrable shield of skepticism around the very topics that might hint at hidden truths. Beyond external influences, there's a profound element of psychological conditioning at play, the inherent human tendency to dismiss the unbelievable. Our minds are wired to seek patterns and make sense of the world within familiar parameters. The idea of shape-shifting reptilians among us, capable of wielding immense power, fundamentally shatters these parameters. It's too outlandish, too disruptive to our perceived reality. Faced with such a concept, the brain often defaults to rejection, preferring the comfort of the known, even if that comfort is a carefully constructed illusion. This internal resistance makes it incredibly difficult for even compelling, albeit unverified, information to gain traction. The most obvious counter-argument to the cold blood test theory, and indeed to most conspiracy theories, is the glaring lack of tangible, verifiable evidence. No leaked documents, no credible whistleblowers with irrefutable proof, no physical artifacts. For the general public, accustomed to evidence-based reasoning, this absence is damning. But within the conspiratorial framework, this very lack of evidence is reinterpreted as the ultimate proof of the conspiracy's success. It suggests a conspiracy of silence, so perfectly executed, so deeply entrenched among those in power, that no loose ends are ever left, no mistakes ever made. An alleged agreement among elites to conceal the truth becomes the explanation for every unanswered question, every dismissed claim. This dynamic illustrates the power of suggestion, how the very absence of concrete information can paradoxically fuel deeper speculation and conviction among those predisposed to believe. The gaps in our knowledge become fertile ground for the imagination, filled with the most elaborate and unsettling possibilities. For the skeptic, the blank spaces scream, "Nothing there." For the believer, they whisper hidden secrets. Ultimately, the individual's perspective becomes the crucible in which these claims are forged or discarded. While some see clear evidence in the subtle cues, the historical anomalies, and the persistent whispers. Others perceive only delusion, confirmation bias, and the human brain's remarkable capacity for pattern recognition, even where no pattern exists. The silence, therefore, isn't empty. It's a canvas upon which different realities are painted, each reflecting the observer's own predispositions and willingness to question the very fabric of their perceived world. The test, in this sense, becomes less about physiology and more about psychology, revealing not only who might be different, but who is willing to believe in the difference. The lingering questions surrounding the alleged cold blood test are perhaps its most enduring legacy. If such a diagnostic tool was ever truly deployed, what became of the individuals it supposedly exposed? Were they quietly removed from positions of influence, their careers abruptly ended without explanation? Or were they somehow neutralized, their reptilian identities contained within the clandestine shadows of a government that sought to maintain order at all costs? The narrative offers no clear answers, leaving a chilling aftermath that is perhaps more unsettling than any definitive conclusion. The absence of public trials, dramatic revelations, or widespread panic only deepens the mystery, suggesting a level of control and secrecy almost unimaginable. This enduring mystery begs the question, was the test ever truly discontinued, or did it merely evolve, becoming even more sophisticated and undetectable? Perhaps the crude temperature-based methods were just an early iteration, replaced by bioscans or psychic probes, too advanced for the public to comprehend. The idea that a threat so profound could simply vanish without a trace seems improbable to those who subscribe to the theory. Instead, they posit that the operations went deeper underground, the stakes higher, the methods more refined. The cold blood test then becomes not a historical artifact, but a precursor to an ongoing unseen war for humanity's future, fought in the boardrooms and back alleys of power. The what-if scenario woven into this theory is profoundly unsettling. What if even a fraction of this narrative were true? The implications would shatter our understanding of history, politics, and even human identity. It would mean that many of the leaders and figures we have admired, trusted, or even feared might not be who or what they seem. The very fabric of society, built on assumptions of shared humanity, would unravel. Trust would evaporate, replaced by a pervasive paranoia that every smile, every handshake, every policy decision could be a calculated move by a non-human intelligence. This thought experiment, however outlandish, forces us to confront the fragility of our perceived reality and the deep-seated human need for a consistent, understandable world. This profound impact on perceived reality brings us to the core of belief itself. Why do some cling to this narrative so tenaciously, despite the lack of conventional proof? It speaks to a fundamental human need for explanation, particularly when faced with phenomena that defy easy understanding. In a world often perceived as chaotic and unjust, the idea of a hidden, malevolent force can offer a strangely comforting framework. It provides a singular, albeit terrifying explanation for corruption, inequality, and the seemingly inexplicable actions of those in power. It offers a clear enemy, a target for our anxieties and frustrations, transforming abstract societal problems into a concrete, identifiable foe. This search for explanation blurs the lines between fact, fiction, and the human interpretation of reality. The cold blood test becomes a lens through which believers re-examine every historical event, every political maneuver, every cultural shift. Coincidences become patterns, anomalies become evidence, and silence becomes complicity. The narrative doesn't just describe a test, it describes a worldview, a complete re-evaluation of everything we thought we knew. It highlights how deeply our individual perceptions shape the truth we choose to accept, and how powerfully a compelling story, even one without traditional evidence, can resonate with our deepest fears and desires for understanding. Ultimately, the continuing search for answers, for truth, or simply for a story that makes sense of the world, is what keeps the legend of the cold blood test alive. It taps into our primal curiosity about the unknown, our suspicion of hidden power, and our eternal fascination with what lies beyond the veil of everyday perception. Whether it's a forgotten chapter of history or a testament to the human imagination, the test serves as a powerful reminder that some mysteries, once whispered into existence, refuse to be silenced. The journey through the alleged cold blood test and the reptilian conspiracy theories forces us to reconsider what we understand as reality. It's a narrative that, however fantastical, compels us to look beyond the surface, to question the accepted historical accounts, and to ponder the existence of secret histories and hidden agendas that might truly shape our world. We've explored the mechanics of this supposed test, its whispered applications, and the unsettling silence that allowed it to remain largely unnoticed by the public. Now, as we draw to a close, it's time to reflect on the profound implications of such stories and their enduring power to shape our perceptions. The immense power of narrative cannot be overstated. Stories, whether grounded in verifiable fact or spun from the threads of speculation, possess an extraordinary ability to mold our understanding of reality. The tale of the cold blood test is a prime example. It's a narrative so deeply embedded within a broader conspiratorial framework that it ceases to be a mere anecdote and transforms into a lens through which countless individuals interpret global events, political machinations, and even human behavior. Even for those who dismiss it as pure fiction, the story serves as a mirror, reflecting anxieties about control, authenticity, and the very nature of power. It underscores how compelling, even outlandish narratives can profoundly influence collective consciousness and individual worldviews. This line of thought inevitably leads to a personal connection, an unsettling thought that our perception of the world might be incomplete or worse, deliberately manipulated. If entities exist among us, indistinguishable yet fundamentally different, what does that say about the trust we place in our leaders, our institutions, and even our fellow citizens? The cold blood test narrative, in its essence, preys on this deep-seated human vulnerability. The fear of the unknown, the suspicion of those in authority, and the unease that comes from feeling like a pawn in a game we don't fully understand. It forces us to confront the possibility that the familiar world we inhabit is merely a carefully constructed facade, concealing a far more complex and perhaps terrifying truth. Therefore, the call for critical thinking becomes paramount. In an age of information overload and rapidly spreading narratives, it is more crucial than ever to encourage viewers to question everything, to research diligently, and to form their own conclusions based on evidence, logic, and independent thought. Blind acceptance, whether of mainstream narratives or fringe theories, leaves us susceptible to manipulation. The story of the cold blood test, while perhaps a product of imaginative speculation, serves as a potent reminder that we must cultivate discernment, challenge assumptions, and actively seek understanding rather than passively consuming received wisdom. It's an invitation to engage with the world not as passive observers, but as active participants in the pursuit of truth. The enduring allure of the unknown is a fundamental aspect of the human condition. Why are we so endlessly fascinated by what lies beneath the surface, by the hidden dimensions of reality that defy conventional explanation? Perhaps it's our innate curiosity, our primal drive to explore and comprehend the universe around us. Or perhaps it's a deeper, almost spiritual yearning for meaning beyond the mundane, a desire to believe that there is more to existence than meets the eye. The cold blood test taps into this ancient fascination, offering a glimpse into a world where the extraordinary is not just possible, but actively concealed. So, we are left with a final thought, a lingering question that resonates long after the credits roll. Are there truly things hidden in plain sight, veiled by layers of secrecy and disbelief? Or is the greatest mystery of all our own boundless imagination capable of conjuring entire worlds and elaborate conspiracies from the shadows of our fears and hopes? The answer, perhaps, lies not in definitive proof, but in the intellectual call to action it inspires. To continue exploring the boundaries of known reality, to question everything, and to remain open to the possibility that the universe and our place within it might be far more intricate and enigmatic than we ever dared to imagine. The search for truth, whatever form it takes, is a journey without end.